A classic noir scene where a woman is either a victim or a femme fatale. But what if I told you that the most dangerous gangs of the 19th century were led by women in corsets and full skirts? An era when women couldn't vote, but they had to catch murderers. Today, we will explore three stories that have inspired modern TV series. In 1861, a secret society of assassins devised a plan to eliminate Abraham Lincoln before he could take office. They had a date, a location, and a guaranteed escape route. The U.S. government was at a loss. The Pinkerton Agency was stymied. But then a widow named Kate Wharton entered the fray. If she made even one mistake, the American Civil War would have begun with a presidential funeral. Most people believe that private investigation has always been a male-dominated world. They're wrong. The most effective weapon in the history of criminology wasn't a gun or a badge. It was a corset. Let's go back 5 years, before the conspiracy against Lincoln. A woman enters the office of the Pinkerton Detective Agency. At that time, there were no women in the police force. At best, they were matrons, essentially overseers in women's prisons. Allan Pinkerton, the legendary founder, decided that she needed a job as a secretary. But Kate Wharton utters a phrase that changes history. "I can infiltrate places where your male agents would immediately raise suspicion." She declares that the wives and mistresses of criminals would never suspect a woman as a spy. They would gossip, they would boast, they would lose their vigilance. Pinkerton is taking a risk. Her first big case, the robbery of the Adams Express Company. $50,000 was stolen, millions by today's standards. The wife of the main suspect remained silent as a rock. The male detectives tried to question her, but she laughed in their faces. Kate didn't question her. She became her best friend. She entered her social circle and simply waited. One evening, over a cup of tea, the wife not only confessed where the money was hidden, but she also gave Kate the key to the hiding place. This was not just a success, it was a revolution in the way things were done. However, Kate's true challenge lay ahead, a conspiracy that extended to the very top. Let's fast forward to the assassination attempt on Lincoln. The conspirators in Baltimore planned to stab the president during his train transfer. Kate Wharton goes undercover as a passionate Southern belle. She wears a Confederate cockade, the symbol of the South, on her dress. She frequents bars, hotels, and balls. She hears whispers. She identifies the leader of the assassins. However, Lincoln doesn't trust her. He believes that the lady detective is prone to exaggeration. Kate doesn't argue. She orchestrates a logistical miracle. She buys the back of a sleeping car on a night train. She disguises the president-elect as an ailing old man. When the train stops in Baltimore, in the kill zone, the assassins are waiting on the platform. Kate stands right there, in the shadow of the car, her hand on her gun. She's looking at them through the glass, made up, silent. The train starts moving. Lincoln is alive. When the eye that never sleeps became the Pinkerton logo, everyone thought it was Allan's eye. No, it was Kate's eye. But while Kate was working in the shadows, another woman was preparing to shatter the glass ceiling in the heart of criminal New York. Imagine, New York, 1912. The city is in a panic. Taxi bandits roam the streets. In broad daylight, a daring robbery takes place, and $25,000 are stolen. At the time, this was a fortune, but today it would be more than $700,000. The city's top detectives are on the case. They're searching for clues, interrogating informants, but to no avail. The criminals have vanished. The NYPD is in disgrace. And just when it seems like the case is hopeless, a new player enters the fray, and it's not Sherlock Holmes. On stage, a 47-year-old widow, mother of 4, who works at the police station as a cleaner and supervisor. Her name is Isabella Goodwin, and it is she who will do what 60 male detectives could not do. How did she do it? In the early 20th century, women were not allowed to carry weapons or conduct investigations in the police force. They were known as police matrons, and their work was demanding and unappreciated. They were responsible for cleaning the cells, searching detained women, and caring for the homeless children who were brought to the station. Isabella Goodwin did not take this position out of a good life. In 1896, her husband, also a policeman, died, leaving her alone with 4 children. She needed a job. She got a job with the police, received pennies, and slept in a cubicle at the station. But Isabella had a talent that couldn't be bought. She knew how to listen. While she was mopping the floors and feeding the prisoners, she memorized their jargon, their habits, their secrets. She became one of them in the world of crime while remaining on the side of the law. Let's go back to February 15, 1912. Manhattan. 2 bank couriers get into a taxi with a bag of money, but the taxi is a fake. Suddenly, bandits appear, beat the couriers with hammers, yes, the methods were brutal back then, and disappear with $25,000. The newspapers nicknamed them the Taxi Bandits. The main suspect was Eddie Kinsman, a well-known figure in criminal circles. The police knew who had done it, but they didn't know where he was. Eddie and his associates had gone into hiding. New York City was vast. Finding them was like searching for a needle in a haystack. Male detectives scoured bars and conducted raids, but the bandits remained silent. The investigators were at a dead end. They needed someone who could infiltrate the beast's lair without raising suspicion. Any male police officer would be immediately exposed. Then someone remembered Isabella. Isabella came up with a daring plan. She would take off her warden's uniform and transform into an ordinary, poor dishwasher. The police had a lead on one of the robbers' mistresses, a girl nicknamed Swede Annie. She was staying at an affordable boarding house. Isabella headed straight there. Imagine this level of acting. Isabella got a job at a boarding house, washing dishes and cleaning rooms. She wore torn clothes, complained about her life, and looked tired and silly. No one, absolutely no one, could have suspected this downtrodden woman of being a police officer. Gradually, she gained the trust of the Swedish girl, Annie. They would chat in the evenings, and Isabella would nod sympathetically as Annie complained about her boyfriend who was missing somewhere. One day, Annie let slip the information about the gang's hideout. Not only did she reveal the location, but she also mentioned the planned meeting. Isabella immediately passed the information on to the station. On the same day, the police raided the apartment. Eddie Kinsman and his gang were arrested. The money was partially recovered. A case that had been considered a dead end was solved thanks to a dishwasher. It was a sensation. The newspapers were full of headlines, but the real reward was yet to come. Police Commissioner Waldo knew that such talent could not be ignored. In 1912, he broke all the traditions and rules and promoted Isabella Goodwin. She became the first woman in New York history to be promoted to the rank of Detective Lieutenant First Grade. Her salary increased from $400 to $1,000 per year, a huge leap. Most importantly, she opened the door for other women. She didn't stop there. Isabella worked for the police for many years. Her specialty was fraud. She loved exposing fake mediums, fortune tellers, and healers who deceived gullible people. She used her main method over and over again: disguise and infiltration. She was a wealthy widow, a naive tourist, a sick old woman. She had 1,000 faces. Isabella Goodwin retired only in 1924 after 30 years of service in the police force. She proved that a detective is not necessarily about brute force and a gun. Sometimes a sharp mind, empathy, and acting talent are much more dangerous for criminals. To understand why Grace was so cool, we need to go back in time. She was born into a wealthy family in 1869. At that time, the expectation for a high society girl was to get married and host tea parties, but Grace was bored. She went on to study law, which was already a scandal, and opened the People's Law Firm. Her clients were the poor and immigrants who were often overlooked by the legal system. She gained her first fame long before the murder story. In the 1900s, she heard rumors about forced labor camps in the South. Immigrants were lured there with promises of work, only to be held as slaves on turpentine farms. Grace was not afraid. She disguised herself, traveled to these camps, collected evidence, and brought the owners to justice. She became the first woman appointed as a special assistant U.S. attorney. Theodore Roosevelt personally shook her hand. Isabella Goodwin proved that a woman could be an excellent detective by using cunning and disguise. She worked within the system. But just 5 years later, in 1917, New York was shocked by the story of a different woman. She didn't wear a police badge, pretend to be a cleaning lady, or follow the commissioner's orders. Instead, she declared war on lazy police officers and solved cases using only her sharp mind and knowledge of the law. If Isabella was the queen of disguises, this woman was nicknamed Mrs. Sherlock Holmes by the press. Meet Grace Hamilton. 18-year-old Ruth Kruger, a model Sunday school student, leaves her home in Harlem. She has a simple errand to take her skates to a sharpener. She enters the workshop of Alfredo Cacco, an Italian man, and no one sees her again. Ruth doesn't return home for dinner. Her parents panic and call the police. And what does the NYPD do? They wave their hands. She just ran off with a guy. It's a young thing. She'll come back, the detectives say. Ruth's father begs them to check Cacchi's workshop. Reluctantly, the police go there. Cacchi is calm and allows them to search the premises. The police find nothing and leave. Alfredo Cacco disappears, supposedly to go to Italy to visit his ailing father. The police shrug their shoulders again. Well, maybe Ruth ran away with him. The case remains unsolved. The official version is that she ran away. The girl's reputation has been tarnished. Ruth's father, Henry Kruger, doesn't believe that his daughter could have run away. In desperation, he hires Grace Hamilton. Grace begins working not as a cop, but as a lawyer. She investigates financial traces, interviews neighbors, and creates a psychological profile of the suspect, Alfredo Cacco. She finds out that Cacchi has a history of trouble with the law and has been harassing female clients. Grace realizes that the police not only made a mistake, but also acted with criminal negligence. She seeks permission to conduct a full search of the workshop building. Instead of just going in and looking around, she plans to turn the place upside down. It's been 4 months since the disappearance. Grace arrives at the workshop. The police officers laugh at her, saying, "Lady, we've been here 3 times. It's empty." However, Grace notices something that the men have overlooked. In the basement of the workshop, the floor appears strange. One section of the concrete surface differs in color and level. Grace orders, "Dig here." The cops grumble, but they start breaking up the concrete. There's dirt under the concrete. They dig deeper. Suddenly, the shovel hits something solid. They pull out a woman's coat, then a glove, and then they find Ruth Kruger's body. It turned out that Ruth had been murdered the same day she went to sharpen her skates. Cacchi had hidden the body in a pre-dug hole and poured concrete over it. While the police were telling her parents fairy tales about running away with her lover, Ruth was lying right under their feet. It was an explosion. The city was furious. The police were accused of incompetence. It was revealed that the detectives had even taken bribes from Cacchi's lawyers to avoid digging too deeply. Grace Hamilton became a national hero. The newspapers were shouting, "What 60 men couldn't do, one woman accomplished." Alfredo Cacco was caught in Italy, convicted and sentenced to 27 years in prison. And Grace? She continued her fight. She created a special bureau to search for missing girls. Unfortunately, her career later declined due to political intrigues and the jealousy of male colleagues who could not forgive her for this humiliation. Grace Hamilton died in 1962, almost forgotten by everyone. But the story of Ruth Kruger has remained in the textbooks of criminology as an example of how intuition, attention to detail, and perseverance are more important than any police badge. She proved that women's logic is a powerful weapon against crime.